Welcome to the Giants Nation Show. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump, and it's draft week. It's our final positional preview of the draft. We have so much coming up for you this week, but the real big news is, Grump, you look like you're gonna hurt somebody because you got a wife beater on. You have your shirt unbuttoned. What's going on here?
It's Easter. It's a big day. It's Easter Sunday. It's 420. Devils were on today for their first
We got
playoff
killed.
game.
We got killed.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not.
I've had a couple of beers. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. It's draft week. This is Christmas week.
Well, I don't celebrate Christmas, so this is much better than that for me.
This is 4th of July week for you. Then.
This is 4th of July week for me. Again, it's one that, it's the 4th of July is the best holiday. Draft day is the next best. So, we're going to do our defensive tackle preview in this episode. We got so much stuff coming out this week, Grump. One, we're going to be streaming the entire draft from pick one, even an hour before pick one, until Mr. Irrelevant. So excited about that. We'll have film breakdowns out on every single Giants draft pick. Myself and Grump will be doing our draft day mock drafts pod on Wednesday. We'll have a first round recap on Friday morning, a full draft recap. Danny King's going to be a part of the live stream. So again, jump on now because this is fun. Finish the first month of the Giants Nation show with us. So it's been a lot of fun. Before we get into these defensive tackles, this episode was brought to you by some special people. We got Nick De Leonardis, Phil Giuliano, the pizza people. They are out and they are ready for the draft. Robert Pupkin, he's not a pumpkin, he's a pupkin. Bryant, not Kobe, just Bryant. And then Jonathan Skinner, who has my same last name. A very special thank you to Jonathan. I just sent out, and by the way, starting to send out stickers because there's been so many. And then Keith Blazer, he's got a Blazer. K5 Chevy Blazer. Grump, who are these special people?
These people went to patreon.com/Giants Nation and signed up for some amount. I don't remember what they are. I think it's what, $6.99, $5.99.
It's $6, and we now that it's what we run off of, I prefer the $9.99, and I made it $9.99 instead of $10 to manipulate the audience because that just looks so much closer to $6 than $10 does. So, it's a little bit of manipulation on my point, but I, would hope that you do it. You get stickers. We're going to do a t-shirt contest, which are going to be out, this week. So if you want to get in on this month's, make sure to join now. The recap podcast, the Patreon will get to see that first. So appreciate you guys all very much. Patreon.com/Giants Nation. You'll be glad you did. All right, Grump, let's start with Mason Graham. And I know that Giants aren't probably picking him, but I do want to talk about a guy who, if they traded back, might be the top of the board for them. He's a projected top 5 pick out of Michigan. Grump, we looked at him in our way too early draft preview. Wasn't in love, but I liked more what I saw from him this year compared to the year before. I mean, he just wins in multiple ways. And what I like about him compared to some other guys on this list is that he is a reactive rusher. You see the quick defensive tackles who win laterally, but what I think sets Graham apart outside of just athletic ability and his strength is how reactive he is, right? He'll push through the shoulder if he sees it weak. He works hand moves. He'll get lateral. He'll strike and pull. He's the defensive tackle who I think has the most in his bag. And again, he's reacting to what the offensive line is doing instead of pre-planning moves. If the Giants don't go Abdul or Travis, he would be the guy that I want.
Yeah, see, I don't really fully endorse that. So I really like Mason Graham. I think he is without a doubt the best defensive tackle in this class. I think that he anchors down very, very well against double teams. He's really quick and twitchy for his size, 6'3", 296 pounds. He's only got 32-inch arms, which is not bad. It's just very kind of average for the size.
They're not top 5 defensive tackle numbers for his size and everything.
Right, yeah. He can line up really wide at times at Michigan. He's got super active hands, really, really active. Got a really, really good swim move. I think he works the rip move really well, too. Sometimes I wish that he would throw his punch a little bit faster and stronger. And I do wish that his bull rush had a little bit more leg drive. When the offensive lineman anchors down, he can kind of just get stalemated and just stop his legs. If he would just keep his legs going, I think he's got the pad level, the leverage, and the natural strength to make something out of that. My biggest thing is that I just don't see a top 5 talent here. It's not that I don't see what I would expect to see for someone getting top 5, even top 10 buzz at a defensive tackle is someone who is just absolutely dominant throughout all of college. And that means the biggest matchups as well as the smallest matchups. And personally, I didn't see that from Mason Graham. So for me, if the Giants didn't go with, Hunter or Cam Ward or Abdul Carter, Mason Graham still falls behind Membo for me. I wouldn't.
That's the conversation.
That's just my opinion.
That's the conversation because again, this is a big reason why I am pretty anti trade down. And again, I don't think it's just being reactive to how terrible the 2021 trade down the results of that were, but it's because I do view it's like, man, I want those. There's like you said, there's 3 guys I want: Cam, Abdul, or Travis Hunter. And I just want one of those players. I don't want to trade down. But that's what I wanted to ask you, because again, he doesn't have the greatest production in the world. He's not physically just dominating. But I do see a guy who's gonna be super productive. I think he's gonna be very productive in the NFL, right? Like Aiden Hutchinson was my number 2 player in that draft, behind Sauce Gardner. And there was like, he wins this way, but doesn't have this quick speed or bend. It's like, okay, but the guy knows how to win. So that's what I want to ask you. Like, let's just say the Giants did trade down to 4. Like, let's talk about your board a little bit of like the guys you'd take ahead of Mason Graham.
I mean, it might just be Membo. You know what I mean? But, I don't know. I mean, even if you were to make that comparison with Aiden Hutchinson, like at least I thought Aiden Hutchinson was somebody that I would pick before Mason Graham, just based off of the film.
Yes,
like they were the same class. Like I get what you're saying, but he's an edge rusher. He was still really productive. You could see that he was going to be productive at the next level. For me, Mason Graham, I mean, like his college tape, I don't think is better than Dexter Lawrence's. And people thought Dexter Lawrence went too high. I personally didn't. But he went 17th, and I thought his college film looked better.
So this is where, again, I have like agreements with you here. It's just when I say if they traded down, like here's like my
trading down to 4 is like it's step backwards. Like to me, he's like in the teens kind of player
for this class.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the part I really have to figure out.
That's the thing I'm trying to say right now is with this class, because really the only 2 guys, and again, I haven't watched everyone at the top of this class because we're not in that range really, and I'm trying to catch up on other things. But Will Johnson and Armand Membu would be the 2 people I would consider. And I think I would just go Graham over Membu. Malachi Starks, I think is right there, is like just far as big board, and Ashton Genty, but I'm not taking those guys.
Right.
Number 4 overall.
Is it weird that we're not saying Shedeur?
Well, no, because we don't think Shedeur or Sanders is like trading down 1 spot doesn't make me want Shedeur.
Okay, agreed.
So this is again a big part of the reason why I do not want to trade down is because I truly view that Carter and Hunter are top 5 picks in any class, and Mason Graham, like, okay, like let's look at last year's class. Like Jared Verse, I would have had higher. Kenyon Mitch, I would have had higher. I can even pull up my 2024 big board to go through the defensive players. And last year had all this offensive talent. This year it doesn't have.
No, I mean, like the wide receivers kind of stink, the top end ones anyway.
Yes. So here's the players I would have, forget QBs because last year had Caleb, Drake, and Jaden. Here's the players I would have had over Mason Graham last year. Marv, Neighbors, Bowers, Olu, Kenyon, Verse, Odunze, Alt, and I think Jaden. I have Brian Thomas and Fuaga right in that. I think I would take him over Fuaga and Brian Thomas Jr. Not using the hindsight.
I would agree with
Brian
that.
Thomas Jr. was.
Yeah.
I was really high on Brian Thomas Jr. I had him 12th on the big board. So again, like the defensive player I would have taken him above last year on my big board, the first one would have been Johnny Newton. Right? So it would have been Mason Graham, Johnny Newton, Alex Frenner, Byron Murphy, Latu Latu, and then it dips off like Edgerrin Cooper, Kool-Aid, Chop. So again, this is a good conversation. I'm a little worried about. As we've gotten closer to the draft, I've gotten a little more worried about pick 34 because I did this exercise with the Big Blue UK guys, and we drafted a fantasy lineup. Me, and three other guys. Two of their guys on their show, and then Monty. And you get to like the 19th or 20th pick, and it's like, oh, this guy's going 19th or 20th. This really is like not a good draft at the top.
Yeah. I think that was kind of like the biggest disappointment for me was all of the top 5 hype that I had heard about Mason Graham, and then watching him be like, really? Like,
it's a product of this class.
Sure. But I mean, hype is hype. You know what I mean? Like, there is a small contingent of Giants fans that are like, I kind of hope Mason Graham happens. It's like, I
think they're just plugging in like defensive tackle being a big need and him being
correct.
Top 5 to 7 on most people's big boards.
I'm a little surprised that we had the exact same analysis on Graham. I thought that was going to be a little bit more contentious.
Oh, I really didn't want to talk about Graham too much because one, people have their opinions and it's not a likely thing for the Giants. But I wanted to talk about like the conversation of trading down. I think it's a good example of why I don't think either of us are on the trade down train. Well, even though it's not really even been floated out there with the Giants.
What's really interesting is where the defensive tackles fall from after Mason Graham. I think it's like a big jumble based on who you ask.
It is a big jumble. So let's get into that big jumble because we have a lot of guys. We're not going to do Derek Harmon because we did the Filato episode with that. And there's so many defensive tackles. Again, there's guys that I like that we're leaving off this, preview. Omar Norman Lobb, Cam Jackson, CJ Westerman. So, like, I want to start with Alfred Collins because he's a top 30 visit for the Giants, and I could see him being really likely for them. 6'6", 332-pound mammoth out of Texas. And he has a top 30 visit for the Giants. And before we heap him with praise, Grump, because I'm going to give him a good amount of praise, I want to say this. He really gives you nothing as a pass rusher. But he is a legitimate monster in the run game. The way he dominated Georgia was just flat out beautiful. I even like this, the first 2 plays, or first handful of plays you watch on the guy, kind of like, all right, get me excited or a little bummed out. And there was pass plays. I was like, yeah. And then just in the run game, dude, it just became nastiness. Like he just lands hands and dominates offensive linemen. It's like every single play, strike, extend, read, shed. I mean, he is a 2-gapping monster. You double team him, he's going to split those. And despite him not being like the best athlete in the world, like he's got like that little juice in him to close in on a running back that's, maybe a little bit out of reach and not just directly in his line, through the hole that he's, occupying. But man, he is just a 2-gapping son of a gun, right? Like he's strong as an ox. He just controls, bullies offensive linemen. Again, he's not going to give you any pass rush, but as far as the run game and having a nose for the screen stuff, and I think he like understands, like, I'm not a pass rusher, I'm a run defender. And dude, it is fun to watch. Like out of all these defensive tackles, if I have to do a film breakdown on them, Alfred Collins is going to be the easiest. It's like, all right, just watch him win. Strike, extend, read, shed. Strike, extend, read, shed. It's like over and over and over again.
Alfred Collins is a very, very good blend of size and strength. That's 6'6", 332 pounds, 34.5-inch arms. He has all the length and he uses it really, really well. Now, of course, not a lot of lateral quickness. He's not the fastest, most twitchy athlete in the world. Like you said, he doesn't offer a ton in the run game, but I think that is something that, in the pass rush portion of the game. But I do think that that's something that can be refined and improved upon throughout his NFL career, because there's a couple of things that I think can be worked on. And number one is pad level. I think that his pad level, again, he stands at 6'6", so that's going to come with some good yoga and hamstring stretches so that he can get a little bit lower. But if he can get lower, just the leg drive and this natural strength that he has is going to go a really long way. And I also think that his handwork is a little bit sloppy and a little bit slow. I think that if he can continue to refine his hand fighting, I think that he can win his matchups a little bit earlier, and he can begin to close on quarterbacks. But as far as the run game goes, you're 100% right. I completely agree with you. I think that he absolutely just controls blockers, and he's plenty strong up top to just kind of, lock on, shed, and close. Just like you said.
If you talk about like need for the Giants, this is what they need. They need a run defending, 3-tech. And that's exactly what Alfred Collins is. Like, again, anytime there's a double team, he anchors, like he just never gives up any ground. There's, plays where he splits them. And again, it's just every play, like gets hands on guys, lands hands well, extends with those long arms, and is just able to read where the back is going and shed. If we're talking about like a value of where these guys are going to go, we'll talk about Walter Nolen, and we're not doing Derek Harmon in this class. Alfred Collins at 65 would be pretty damn nice. I think there's a good chance he doesn't go there, or he goes before there. But the Giants have to have interest. I mean, they had a top 30 visit, and if there's any position they left themselves vulnerable at post free agency, it was defensive tackle.
So I personally don't think that he'll be there at 65, but the consensus big board has him going near there. Personally, I have him ranked a lot higher. I have him as like an early second round pick.
I have him as a second round pick too. I have him as a low second, and that's simply just because he doesn't give you anything as a pass rusher. Like I can't put you that high if you don't have any pass rush ability.
Yeah, I mean, I can get that. Also, he's a 24-year-old coming out in the draft, so you are getting somebody, one of these older prospects that are hanging around still.
Yeah, and you've got some older guys in this group, like Darius Alexander we're going to talk about. So I'm running through a simulator right now just to see where he goes. Did he go? I'm going to pick 65 now. So I'm putting defensive line in. I mean, he's available. He's ranked 79 on the PFF board.
See, that for me,
that's 73.
That feels low for me.
It does.
I get it. I get it, but well, I think like the other thing too is that playing at Texas is like, it's not one of these guys that you see that like is just good in the run game and he played at Coastal Carolina or something like that, where you're like, okay, so he just dominated Marshall. You know what I mean?
He dominated Georgia.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm all in on the Alfred Collins train. I think Connor Rogers took him in the mock draft we did last week. And you got anything else on him? Again, he's just got a great anchor, and just the way he plays the run game is just so freaking nice. Speaking of Connor Rogers, did you see my appearance on the PFF Stock Exchange podcast?
I did not, no.
So they did it while I was out, and I jumped on, and I was holding my phone in the sun, and I'm like, this is cool. This is the #1 draft podcast. I get to make an appearance and and grow, and then my phone's just like overheating, like we're like 30 seconds into me being on there. It's like, son of a bitch. But they got Rutgers running back Kyle Mangiani for me, so I guess it worked out all right. No, but I was so excited for it, and I totally screwed it. But
I biffed it, dude.
I really did. But thank you, Trevor and Connor, for having me on.
My last thing on Alfred Collins is that I think that, I don't know if you want to make this transition, but like, to me, he's what I wanted to see out of Kenneth Grant.
Okay, let's do that. Let's skip Walter Nolen and go to Kenneth Grant.
All right. So let me just say, if Alfred Collins is 6'6", 332 with 34.5-inch arms, Kenneth Grant is 6'3", 331, 33-inch arms. And I don't want to say like they're the same player, because that's not true, but they're both big guys. And I felt a little bit more comfortable with Alfred Collins than Kenneth Grant. I don't know how you kind of felt with that.
So there is an age difference, and I think that matters when talking about it, because like I said, Alfred Collins doesn't give you any pass rush ability. I think Kenneth Grant is not walking in the NFL and giving you this pass rush ability, but I can see it being grown in there, and you saw like a little bit of it. But again, like you mentioned, he's this gigantic defensive tackle, nose tackle, who just has natural run stopping ability. And again, I have pass rush potential, because One, he has tree trunks for legs. But he can push the pocket, but he has no pass rush moves. Where Alfred Collins is very much like, I'm reading, I'm two gapping, where Grant will push the pocket. And he'll gain ground, which is the most important thing to work with. But again, he doesn't work any moves. I think he rushes with his shoulders. You'll see some flashes of something here and there using his hands or working laterally, but um but it needs more. Again, I have one of my notes is he needs unlocking in order to not just be a decent defensive tackle, because again, he is raw, right? I think he's the only guy on here who I have is like raw on here, where other guys I feel a little more developed in what they are. Joshua Farmer might fall into that category. But again, he's got good athleticism for his size, and he just has mass that moves forward, and that natural raw strength that makes plays for him. Um, and again, he can work laterally a little bit, but he, again, I just, I like to see the way he plays the run game. He plays with a high pad little, so can lose certain battles in the run game. But again, like Alfred Collins, he's able to extend and shed consistently, giving him that two gap ability, right? You see him flow with the run well when it's those outside type of runs. So again, I think people have Kenneth Grant as a low first. I have him as a high second. And I think Alfred Collins' film, definitely in the run game, is better, where Kenneth Grant gives you a little more in the pass rush game. But I think if you take Kenneth Grant above Alfred Collins, it's you're hoping for a little more development for him, right? Where sometimes you see defensive tackles, Grump, and it's not just a Dexter Lawrence thing. Um, Sometimes they're okay in the NFL, and then once they hit like year 3, year 4, they just become different players. And I think maybe that's somewhat we're seeing, whereas like some of these guys are 24, 25, and then the young guys like Kenneth Grant, who I believe is 22, um, need a little more developing. But I see the vision with Kenneth Grant.
So I definitely agree with that. I think at 22 years old, you're looking at the vision. I think one of the things that I think there's a huge difference is that between Grant and Collins is that Grant uses his hands very quickly. Even if he is raw, the hands are active and they're quick. And he when he lands, he does really, really well in the pass rush. A lot of times he just doesn't land, but there is definitely rawness there. There's way too many instances of him spinning. And I don't mean like doing a spin move. I mean like just getting turned around by a play, or his back is to the line of scrimmage. I don't like that. And I don't know if I'm going to disagree with you on the mass. So I have that he's bigger than he is strong. He's definitely big up top, and I don't know if he's got narrow hips or if he's actually lighter on bottom, but there's a lot of plays where he's on the ground. Balance issues, which I don't know if it's because he's doing a little bit of leaning, which is okay. You just have to control it, or if it's actually because his strength is coming from the wrong place, where he's not really playing over his feet and has that same mass on bottom that he does on top, where he's not top heavy. I'm not sure what it is, but I counted enough instances where I felt the need to write down balance issues always on ground. So it couldn't have just been double teams that I was seeing, but the double teams to me
Here's a
is
note I
all
have.
pad level.
I have no is he rushes with his shoulders, which again I think his hands are a little undeveloped, and he's fine okay throwing a shoulder in there when it's like, all right, man, lead with your hands.
Right.
If you're leading with your shoulders, you're obviously playing a little, you're leaning too much without that control.
And that really could just be it, is just, using his hands better to control blockers, and that might solve a lot of his balance issues. But that was one of the things that I saw that I really didn't like, is it was pretty consistent.
I have a question. And does it look like I'm looking down at all times right now with this new setup I have?
I wouldn't say down, but not as direct as it used to be.
Because now it's like I have this big monitor, so I'm like looking from side to side. And before it was just I had this little laptop that I looked down at, and it's just like I got everything in my line of vision. How about that? Do you have anything else on Kenneth Grant before we go to Walter Nolen?
No, I mean, I don't have him as a first round pick. I have him as a second round guy.
Me too. I have him high second.
Yeah.
Which I think ends up being a first rounder in this class.
Could be.
But again, I think he's got Mason Graham, I'm confident will be the best defensive tackle in this class. If it's like, hey, bet on someone to develop to be the second best, I think Kenneth Grant is right there. A lot of people's second best though is Walter Nolen, the Texas A&M transfer out of Ole Miss. Grump, he's quick and he plays with violence. His hands can be a little sloppy, but they're strong. They are effective. And there's just so many times you see him, he just bowls over offensive linemen. Like he just has raw knockback power where it's not just like, oh, he just beats the offensive lineman's ass. But a lot of times he's just like, you got a guard's foot behind a center or whatever. He brings that power and then he's putting those guys down. So I feel like he's one of the harder evals because it's just like there's so much yin and yang to his game where it's like I just said all that, but in the run game, man, there's just too many times where I see he's getting torqued. Double teams will just flat out move him. I just wish there's like a better take into the run game. But again, you see like how good of an athlete he is. We talk about sudden with some of the edge rushers we talked about. He is sudden in his movements. But I also think he spends too much time setting up the moves. Instead of just getting forward, but he has strong hands that stun offensive linemen. He could push the pocket, and he's got that closing burst to finish plays. I like Walter Nolen. He is my number 2 in the class. But I saw, some people have him like 8, 9, 10 in their big boards, and I didn't see that with Walter Nolen.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. My second best, I believe I have him as second. He is my second ranked defensive tackle in this class. Quick and twitchy at the point of attack. Really, really fast in pursuit, has really good closing speed, plays with really good pad level. Excuse me. I have a lot of really nice things to say about him, but I also will agree that he's not really like 10th on a big board kind of thing. I also think that maybe he can putter out late in games. It felt like there were less and less highlights by the fourth quarter in all the games that I watched of him. But I mean, I like the motor. I like the moves that he has. He's really quick to get hands on. He sheds blocks well. He works the rip move pretty well. I do think that he does struggle with some head-on strength, especially double teams. But I mean,
double teams just take him out of the play.
100%. He's not going to be your double teams guy. I don't think that's his role in the NFL. But it's he's under 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Not saying he's not big at 296, but he isn't a 330-pound monster like Collins or Grant or Ty Williams or any of those people. So it's just that I don't think that's really his game. I think he's going to be quick and twitchy, and he's going to give the slower, less laterally fluid offensive lineman fits. And that's where he'll survive, which is kind of like the fad right now is you want to get those kinds of defensive tackles on rookie contracts, right? So I kind of get it. As far as the Giants go, I think it's a luxury pick. I don't think it's what they need at defensive tackle right now.
But if he falls to 34, like it'd be hard to pass on him now. So I'm going to read this from Bleacher Report. Which is an aggregation, but like there is questions about like his character. Now with James Pierce, we had a little more concrete stuff of what it was. It's Mississippi defensive lineman Walter Nolen's on-field talent is almost certainly going to make him a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But there are some questions about his maturity level as he prepares to enter the league. Per ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, multiple NFL scouts have expressed maturity concerns about Nolen. Which again, part of me is like a defensive tackle. You don't need to be that mature. Like, is that really the issue? There was a situation Ole Miss during the 2024 season that he may have raised some eyebrows. Nolen appeared to suffer a lower body injury late in the first half of the Rebels game, and he sat out the second half. Speaking to reporters after the game, Mississippi head coach Lane Kiffin offered a cryptic response when asked if there was concern about Nolen's health going forward. I don't know. He wasn't able to go back in. I actually thought he was going to go back in, and he decided he couldn't go back in. Okay. Yeah, Dane Brugler noted the interview process will be crucial to his final grade because he played at 6 different programs in the past 7 years, dating back to his time in high school. According to Fowler, some scouting reports from Nolen mentioned he has a hot history of walking off the practice field mid-session due to frustration. Okay, that's fine, a real example. Some teams don't seem all that concerned about any potential issues. One NFC executive told Fowler they were fine with Nolen's interview. Another personal executive told Fowler that Nolen is someone who is searching for solutions because he's still young as a 21-year-old, which, again, I think is important. Not in the character stuff, just about him as a player. And then they talk about his rankings. Our friend Matthew Holder, pro comparison is Ed Oliver, which I actually think is a pretty good
that is a good comp. Yeah.
So shout out
The-
Matt Holder. I've had him on the old show before.
I'll say that I didn't really know anything about those character concerns, and it's individually those things don't mean much to me, but the pattern I think is slightly concerning. I can get behind that, right? Playing at multiple different programs, hearing about walking off the practice field. That's a little, the football player formerly known as Kadarius Toney. A
So
little bit of that.
character concerns matter differently at different positions. I feel like on the defensive line and edge, it's like, all right, we understand there's some mental part that goes into the game of like game planning, but some of it's just go out and ball. I where corner, it's like, man, I need you dialed in consistently. Again, those things that they were mentioned, I guess walking off the practice field is an issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that there's a positional difference with that one.
Yeah, so that's like a concrete example, and that is an issue. Um, but and again, like some of the stuff is like hand moves are sloppy but effective. Like I want to see him get better. All right, let's talk about. You want to talk about Tyleik Williams or Darius Alexander?
Let's go Tyleik Williams because that sort of fits into our Grant and Collins.
Yeah, I know a lot of similar notes on guys. Why don't you introduce Tyleik Williams?
So I was actually really big on Tyleik Williams last year. I expected him to come out last year. He decided to stay at Ohio State, which I think was a good move for him because he got to win a national title, which is pretty sweet. 6'3", 334 pounds, 32-inch arms. Those are all solid numbers. I think that he's really big and solidly built. His quickness is average, but with that size and being solidly built, like that's not 334 pounds of belly. That's being averagely quick, I think, is good enough for me. I think he's got really good active hands. He's got a refined pass rush ability. I think he's quick to get hands on and shed blocks. I think that he plays with good pad level. I think he's got good leg drive. My biggest thing is I think for his size, the strength is a little bit average, which is uh I do say like a little concerning because usually when I say strength is average, but I note that, somebody could add mass to their frame. I think okay, you know what I mean? Or maybe if their leg drive isn't that good, I'm like, well, okay, you add that leg drive and you might make up for that lack of strength. But he does everything already pretty well. He doesn't really need to grow anymore. So that average strength, I don't really know how you make it better. But other than that, I really don't have a ton of negative notes on Tyleik Williams. The speed and the quickness is pretty average. The strength is kind of average, but everything else is nice and refined. I think that he's probably a rotational player right out of the gate.
I saw him as a little stronger than you but again, another guy who I don't think gives you anything as a pass rusher, but I like he's another two gapping read and shed blocks guy. I think he explodes out of his stance with pop, and his hand usage is a little underdeveloped, or that could get better. But I think he gets offensive linemen off balance, but his pad level does rise, and I think it really screws with him as a pass rusher. And again, he just is another guy who needs refinement, but I just see that ability to just two gap, like again, strike, extend, read, and shed. We've seen that. Now he doesn't have the longer arms as the Alfred Collins and Kenneth Grant like we talked about, but again, he just two gaps really well. He flows with the run well while still getting push, but there is too often where he allows guys into his chest plate. And unlike the Alfred Collins, Kenneth Grants that we talked about, he does lose on double teams and angled down blocks. But again, you see him like he knows how to just drop his ass and anchor versus those doubles. It's just not as consistent as those other guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a pretty solid player. Obviously, a couple of things that he could work on, but I don't know. I think he's probably the most refined out of Grant, Collins, and him. Would you say?
I'd say Collins is way more refined as a run as I'm talking. Let's just talk all run defense with these guys. I think Collins is more refined than him.
Okay.
I think Collins is really refined and he should be. He's older, but I think Collins is really refined as a run defender.
So I have Ty Williams in a really, really close mishmash of guys as like the third through sixth, the defensive tackles. They're all really close, and I don't really have them fully ironed out yet.
Yeah, so I have him as a late second. So let's just go through some of these I have. So here's my second rounders for defensive tackle. Because I have Walter Nolen as a late first. I have Mason Graham as a top 15. Um, and then my early seconds goes Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Alfred Collins, Tyleik Williams. And then you get to the third where I have like Aeneas Peebles, Darius Alexander, Omar Norman Loth. And that's it.
I actually have I have Harmon as a late first, and then I have Ty Williams, Kenneth Grant, Darius Alexander, and Alfred Collins all as seconds.
I
but
think
I'm
Harmon
not
will
sure what order.
I guess what I have is my like everyone's grading scale is different. Mine is where would I be like excited to pick you, regardless of like New York Giants fit or whatever. Like let's just say you fit a need on my team. Where in what range am I excited to pick you? Right. So top five, I have Abdul Carter, Hunter. The quarterbacks aren't in this conversation. They get bumps. Um, and then like 6 through 18, I have Graham, J&T, Starks, Will Johnson, Mambu, uh, Campbell, Simmons, and then my 19 to 32 is Cam Ward, Hampton, Loveland, Nolen, Morrison, Connolly, Zabel, Jackson. So, but yeah, that's like when I say late second, that's where it's like, oh yeah, that's where I'm fist pumping on draft night. Um, so that Tyleik Williams is again a second rounder. So we'll see. Part of my dream for draft day or for day two, Grump, is like we get like Donovan Jackson or Gray Zabel at 34 and just get one of those three defensive, like Williams, Collins, Grant's not going to fall, or maybe even the next guy. And let's talk about the next guy, and that's Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle out of Toledo, who had a top 30 visit with the Giants. Grump, we were introduced to him at the Senior Bowl, and he was awesome down there. Now he is a senior because he'll be 25 years old as a rookie. He's been getting like pick 34 buzz, and I'm not in on that. Like I think he's really streaky to me. Like his flashes are awesome. But I think there's way too many snaps that just putter out. Like he desperately needs to add a bull rush to his game, because if he added that, then yeah, I could see it. But he desperately needs that. And we just talked about all these guys and their run defense and two gapping. Like Alexander loses in the run game. Again, like one of my notes is at best doesn't lose double teams. Like he plays with a high pad level. If you down block him, they wash him down. Like again, he can work as a penetrator in the run game, and he pursues to the ball well. So he's someone who can get tackles for a loss. But like just offensive line, like run games are able to target him. And I think that's a huge difference, and that's why I have him as an early third compared to the other guys paired with the older age, where it's like you should be getting more production at Toledo, right? You have 7.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss over the last 2 years at Toledo. So again, he's gifted. And again, he's a guy I need to know how much work he's putting in and figuring out why did it, why is all some of this stuff coming together. But he's athletic. But I'm not in this full bloom love as others with Darius Alexander. I like him. I picked 65. I'd be really excited, but I think pick 34 is a little too rich for Alexander.
I totally agree. I think that he's at best a late second round guy, more like a third round player. Consensus has him around 50, and I kind of agree with that. He's gifted, right? I mean, 6'4", 305 pounds, 34-inch arms. He put up 28 reps on the bench press. Big and strong, and more than that, explosive out of his stance. Decent quickness in tight spaces. He's got really good closing speed. I think that he at times plays with some good pad level, although at sometimes a little too much lean, but really, really serious motor, really serious leg drive, violent hitter. Got a lot of the things you like, but like you said, he takes himself out of the run game sometimes. Double teams just completely wash him out. There is a lot of work to be done for a 24-year-old.
Yeah, he's a negative in the run game, and that's that. Like you said, that is worrisome for someone who's going to be 25 years old as a rookie. And again, like there's just like the flashes are great, but there's just too many snaps that I think putter out. Like add a bull, like you're a grown man, add a bull rush to your game. Like I think that would desperately put him on another level, but why are we talking about that when you're playing weaker competition? Like you should be able to do that, and you just don't see that often. So I went into this like post Senior Bowl and then great. I'm like, man, I really like Alexander. And as we've gotten closer to the draft, Grump, I see people talking about late first, pick 34. I think that's I think there's going to be much better players than Darius Alexander available at that pick 34. So,
I mean, I think it's all relative on who takes him, right? I think if the right team takes him that high, it'll look like a genius pick. But ultimately, I think his year one thing is going to be third and long. Those will be his snaps. You know what I mean? And he'll do well in third and long situations. It'll be up to him in the long run if he ever develops his presence in the run game to being more than a third and long defensive tackle.
right. And again, like I'm not sitting here being like he should be there at 65. Like again, if someone picks him at 59 or 58, I'm not blinking, right? If the Ravens take him, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not even saying it's a bad pick. I just pick 34, man. That's really high, and I feel like that's a little rich for Darius Alexander. Now that I got this new camera, what do you think if I just talk like this from now on?
I think it looks great.
And do the whole draft stream like that.
Just it kind of looks like you're selling me something though. So
I am patreon.com/Giants Nation. All right, let's hit the last two guys on this list. Another top 30 visit for the Giants, and that's Joshua Farmer, the long 35-inch arm defensive tackle out of FSU at 6'3", 305 pounds. But there's some potential there with Farmer. But right now he's just not it to me. He's my good but player, right? Like everything that I say good, there's a but. Like I like go through 5 notes right here that I put. Has a nice pull and pull, but that's where his hand usage stops. Strong upper body, but lacks lower body strength. Quick lateral movement, but doesn't gain ground. Can penetrate gap, but doesn't have the finish in his legs. Quick get off, but laid off the ball too often. He is, again, so when you get a player like that and he has 35-inch arms and you have Jay Patterson as your D-line coach, you're like, potential. But in a defensive tackle class like this, I'd rather take the guys that I'm not betting on so much potential. And maybe Farmer making me look wrong. I certainly don't think he's a useless player, and those things can get better. But I feel like you're betting you're hoping that this guy turns into a player in like year 3.
Yeah, and that's usually my definition for like a third round pick. So like if we're talking about 99 acceptable, I really kind of view him as a late third, fourth round kind of prospect because
Younger guy too, 22 years old.
right. Just super inconsistent. You know what I mean? Like some of the good stuff is really good, and then some of it's just doesn't turn into a finished product. And it's everything. I think that the pass rush moves are kind of raw. I think that his punches are strong but slow. I think he allows hands into his chest. But he does other really good things, like keeping his leg churning. I think he's got good motor. His pad level is a little inconsistent, but most of the time it's pretty okay. I'm not super enamored that this was a top 30 visit for the Giants, because I do view him kind of as a bit of a project.
Yeah, and like you said, late maybe pick 99, one of I can see him being there at those picks, especially in a defensive tackle class. And I think that would be an appropriate pick. But yeah, again, it's just I like him good butt pick. Where there's
It's 100% getting clipped, by the way.
oh yeah, I didn't mean to say it like that. You know who's got a Tyleik Williams? He's got they say with like linemen, they're like look at their ass. Like if like that's yeah you can see the explosion. Maybe it was just that Ohio State view, but I was like this guy can flex. That's getting clipped as well too.
Yeah, I'm not no commenting on.
What did you get clipped on last? Mage clipped you on something. I can't remember what it was.
I was talking about Dave Tollefson, giving people fresh legs and the Giants pass rush from its glory days. And I said, like emphatically too, I was like, to give other guys a blow.
Oh yeah. All right, so yeah, we don't got to spend too much time on Joshua Farmer, but again, he's definitely got ability. It's just about building it. And luckily, if we draft him, we get to say Dre Patterson all over and over and over again. Because just like the way, when we drafted Deontay Banks, it's like, Jerome Henderson going to fix this guy. And now it's like, get this son of a bitch out of here. All right, Jordan Phillips. We'll finish off with him. The strong nose tackle out of Maryland at 6'2", 312 pounds, 31.5-inch arms. We've got another Jordan Phillips that's going to be in the NFL. That's nice. With Phillips, if he was 6'4", 330 and had 33-inch arms, this might be a player that I'm really liking. But I worry his play style just doesn't match his ability. And you look at his production. I mean, 0 sacks and 3 tackles for a loss the last 2 years at Maryland. He plays in this squatty 4-point stance that it allows him to explode into the pads of the offensive lineman with strong hands. The issue, though, Grump, is that it stalls him out because there's so much emphasis on bam, like we're hitting a sled, that the feet don't follow with it, and his base gets off balance. He's not in a position to react to what the offensive line is doing. So as a pass rusher, it gives him no ability to do anything because everything stalls out. He might as well just drop back into coverage on passing downs. I'm not even joking. He would be much better off doing that. But he is strong. But it's just it's all first, second of the play or bust with Jordan Phillips. And again, it's just for if he played the same way and had the same skill set at a little bit of bigger size, sure, but he doesn't. He's undersized for the role that he plays in college.
Yeah, I didn't actually get his age. And I just tried looking it up really quickly now, and I couldn't pull it up really, really quickly. And I think it's because there's so many goddamn Jordan Phillips out there. So I'm not sure how old he is.
I'm going to find it right now.
Yeah, if you could, it's because there are a lot of things that I like about him. But you're describing exactly what I always bitch about with when I say guys do or don't have big leg drive, and that's the fall off, right? So he is super explosive off the snap, for being a larger human for only 6'2", being 312 pounds.
He's 20 years old. He's not even 21 yet.
Okay, so then I feel a little bit better about him than maybe you do because he's a little bit younger.
I didn't realize he was that. Well, usually I look up the ages for these, and I didn't do.
He's the one guy I couldn't find his age really quickly, and I must have just forgotten to get it. But yeah, that lack of leg drive, it completely negates being explosive and being strong. Because if you don't completely knock somebody off balance from that initial hit, then that's what happens. If you don't keep your feet moving, the whole play is over for you because now you're going to go backwards once they anchor down on it. The lack of length, it is what it is. It's never going to get any better. So that leg drive needs to develop for him to do anything in the NFL. I do think for a guy his size, he displayed a pretty decent spin move. I don't really advise that really being a thing for him. But something he can do. Strong, violent hands. I think that he can work his leverage really well because of his size if he can just get the pad level to be consistent. And he posted 29 bench press reps, which I'm not exactly sure where that ranks him among all defensive tackles.
He's strong.
But it's the highest of all the people that we have talked about today.
Look it up. I got to get a new silent keyboard for this new computer. And it's so much different than my laptop where I'm having to look at the keys again.
Come on, bud.
I hate change so much. You know that? I really do. Let's see. Defensive tackle, bench. Yeah, he had the most. Darius Alexander had the second.
Mm-hmm.
Man, nobody does anything in the combine anymore.
Nobody does shit. I don't know why people go to the combine. I don't know why people watch.
You just get their arm length, I guess. Because even the weight, you don't trust that much because they're all, drinking gallons and gallons and gallons of water before.
Yeah, I didn't have a ton on Jordan Phillips. I had a lot less film available than maybe you did, but I have him as a day 3 pick.
Oh yeah, easily a day 3 pick. But again, you see some cool stuff where he's in that 4-point squatty stance and he explodes out. He's got he raised the pads of offensive linemen. It's just okay, but finish that play, and it's just a nice pop. It's like he's doing that D-line drill or O-line drill where you're on your knees in front of the pad. And
you're just doing those.
Yeah. That's kind of what watching Jordan Phillips is like.
Well, let me ask you this: how do you feel about him compared to somebody like DJ Davidson?
I mean, I like him better than I don't like DJ Davidson at all.
So
We
I
drafted DJ Davidson in the 5th round, right? That was he was the only guy from that class that was like I was like I don't really have much. I don't really have anything nice to say about you.
and he was older then. He was like
Yeah,
a
he was
25-year-old rookie or something like that. Now you have a kid who's going to be 20. I don't know if that's the route you want to go with him on day 3. I don't really have a huge problem with it. There's probably more to work with, but there's more to work on, I think. Whereas like DJ Davidson was almost like he wasn't going to get much better, but you know, I don't know. He was what he was. He was just a big human.
Yeah, it was a weird pick. You could say it. All right, that's that's the end of the draft previews, dude. It's always a weird feeling when these end because it's like you put so much work into it, but now the real work begins this week. I'm excited for it, dude.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I feel it's a little bittersweet, right? Like if we could have, not that it was possible, but it would have been awesome to have had like a better head start on this stuff because I would have liked to do all the positions that we ended up skipping, like wide receiver, tight end, even running back. Even if it didn't matter for the Giants, it's still kind of cool just to go through this stuff.
Yeah, usually we do that. And again, I'm watching a good amount of running backs, so I think the Giants are going to draft one, and they have top 30 visits for a bunch of guys, so those are mandatory watch. So like, yeah, next year we'll do.
But like we didn't do any off-ball linebacker, we didn't do any
No.
defensive backs. So
Well, I got married and then offered a bullshit salary. I'm sorry.
well, I mean, yeah, it's entirely your fault, and do better next time, right?
So I'll try to not get married or change my job next year, and maybe that this process could be a little easier on you.
No, it would have been more fun to do all those episodes.
And that's me too. I felt weird not doing them because we've done them every year. A lot of times we'd even pair running back and tight end together because it's like, like we're not drafting high in these positions. What is the highest pick tight end and running back since the Saquon and Evan Ingram picks? Tight end would be Theo or Bellinger were like the exact same pick.
For the Giants, you mean? Or
yeah, for the Giants.
Oh. Theo and Bellinger were close since the Barkley one. The running back, Eric Gray?
Eric Gray and Tracy are the only two.
Were they both
it would
rounds?
be Tracy because we had a higher 5th round pick that year. I think it would be Tracy. I think those are the only 2 backs that we've drafted. Oh, no, Gary Brightwell, but that was a 6th round pick.
That was also Joe Judge. Oh, yeah, but it doesn't
just saying since Saquon and Evan Ingram. And then they drafted Theo, Bellinger. Did they draft any tight ends under Gettleman? I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
No, they didn't.
No.
They almost drafted Caden Smith, but he went one off the board, and they took Darius Slayton. And then they got Caden Smith, and the 49ers cut him in camp or end season. I always liked Caden Smith.
How did you know that?
I think they said that one.
Oh, okay.
I think Dave Gettleman said that. So all right, that's an episode. So we got a lot coming out this week. Like I said, Travis Hunter wide receiver breakdown. We're gonna do some live streams with Entertainer, and then we're gonna do the fan mock draft on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, man, my favorite part of the year. It's the draft day podcast, even though we don't do it on draft day anymore. But if you're actually, I'm not even gonna say that. But the draft day pod, and then we'll be streaming the entire draft. Myself, Grump, and Danny King, and recapping and film breaking down. And I'm really excited for this year, man. I think it's gonna be fun. I want to get the channel to 20K by draft day. That's the hashtag I've created. And then I think it's limitless for what we do on the draft because we're gonna be putting out a ton of stuff. So Grump, appreciate you. We'll see you guys on Wednesday at 3:45, right, Grump?
Yep.
Yeah, there'll be other stuff out between them, but the next pod will be 3:45 live. The first live podcast of Giants Nation. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.